This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, and thank you for tuning into the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we talk the latest and greatest news in the world of sports. As always, I'm Alex.
And I'm Anthony.
And man, has the nation been spoiled by arguably two of the best wild card elimination winner-take-all games since the format has changed in the back-to-back games that we got this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
We obviously had the great 10-inning game over in Toronto a couple nights ago. Extra innings, walk-off home run. Very great in that aspect. And then we had the game last night that was a pitching duel all the way until the end of the game. The Giants won this one 3-0 in the elimination format with a 3-run, in a sense almost, walk-off. It was game-winning home run hit by Connor Gillespie. Excuse me. The Giants move on again 3-0. After only having, at that point, 4 hits.
Yeah,
the stat line read 0 for both teams and 4 hits.
Yeah, at that time, neither offense could do anything. You had Syndergaard just 10 strikeouts through 7 innings, just mowing down people. Bumgarner, not exactly the same sort of thing. Only 6 strikeouts or whatever, but still pretty much just as dominant as Syndergaard was.
Yeah, and Syndergaard had 10 strikeouts. 9 of them were swinging.
Yeah.
They just, Connor Gillespie said it too. He said he had arguably the best stuff I've ever seen. He pitched a no-hitter into the 5th, I want to say, if not the 6th.
Something around there, 5th, yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, gee, man. I was sitting there, I was like, gee, man, frustration. Until Denard Span broke it up with a 3-2, I think 2 out, kind of line grounder up the middle. It's one of those cool ones you like to watch when they come off the bat.
And then Span had that really stolen base that might have been a stolen base, might not have been.
That was one of the best slides I have ever seen in terms of trying to keep your body on the base.
Yeah.
He laid down and really – what I think it was is they called him out and they said stands. When it stands, there's not enough to really differentiate whether or not he was safe or not. I think it was very close. There was a point where it looked like maybe he came off in terms of that very split-second kind of deal.
Because they showed the replay and basically it looked like he had gotten there before the tag.
He was definitely there before the tag.
It just might have been the thing of when he was rolling, he might have slid off the base and they would have got him in that split-second kind of thing.
And if he slid off that bag, it was the most slight release from that bag that you could imagine because it was a beautiful kind of slide. Mm-hmm. But this game was honestly everything was built up to be. Noah Syndergaard pitched amazing.
Yeah,
he was lights out. He was throwing upwards of 98 the entire night. Again, he didn't give up a hit until midway through the game.
Right.
Excuse me. And I think there was 2 different types of kind of strategies in this one. Syndergaard, it was almost kind of maybe at times take your time, get his pitch count up. Work him because he might have to come out of the game, and then that's your best chance. And it showed, of course, it was having Familia come into the game and then him giving up that home run. And then Bumgarner, apparently what they wanted to do was get into the count early against him, get on him early, swing at things early, try to really get into the pitches that he establishes throughout the count. And that led to them having him only throw 21 pitches through the first 3 innings. So,
right.
In my eyes, that was tricky because you have arguably the best pitcher in the NL, save for the guy that he faced this year, or at least just the way in the past couple of years, these 2 guys, great pitchers.
Right.
And then you have the Giants team who gave up 30 blown saves. It's the most of any team to ever make the playoffs in MLB history. Wouldn't you want to get that pitch count up, roughly get him around 115 pitches, through 7, get him out of the game because he finished the game with 118 pitches.
Yeah,
through 9.
Yeah, you'd figure they want to get him just like they were swinging to the first and second pitch a lot of times. So it's one of those things of just look at 3 or 4 pitches because you've seen the past 3 years, 4 years, whatever else like that in the playoffs with him. He has basically been, if he's on, unhittable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you might as well get a thing where like you can only get him for 7 innings, and then the bullpen hasn't been great for the Giants all year, so just try and get him out like that, and then see what Romo or Casilla or Strickland, anybody of those come in and see if they can get anything off of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he ended up pitching 4 hits throughout the entire, pretty much shutout last night for a complete game. I mean, whatever they were doing to try to get to him, it was and it wasn't working.
Right.
They got guys in scoring position, but 4 hits through the entire game and a shutout, that's going to be looked at as dominant no matter how you turn it. And then also, this game had those iconic moments. You had Bumgarner, funny enough, until they had a hit, Bumgarner probably had the best contact out of anybody in the lineup. One that he hit to the warning track. It looked like he hardly even swung at it.
He did it twice. Twice he hit it to like basically the warning track.
Yeah, I mean one of them he just looked like.
But
he
one
didn't
of
even
them,
try. And then you had moments even, and same for the Mets. You had that catch in center field with Granderson going into the wall. Off the bat, I said, oh man, like here we go. Here's finally a breakthrough kind of hit. You can kind of tell with those kind of shots when they come off the bat. You're like, well, that's hit far.
Right.
And Granderson tracked it down, and that was very, very impressive. I mean, there's a runner on second that ended the inning that held them to no runs. I mean, of course, at the end of the day, the end of the losing, but that was a beautiful catch.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have, the relative game-winning home run off of an all-star closer. He led the league, the majors this year with 51 saves and only allowed 1 home run all year. And a guy who's not really known to hit home runs, a guy that was in there because Eduardo Nunez has been hurt.
Right.
Connor Gillespie, who, funny enough, was drafted the same year as Buster Posey. Apparently, as it's so told, Bumgarner, Posey, Crawford, Crawford or Bell, I forget. Bumgarner, Posey, Gillespie, and I'm pretty sure Crawford all played in AAA together.
It's not bad for that Giants team. They've been together now for 6 years. Yeah,
all played in the minor leagues together. And I mean that moment for him. I mean, he was a free agent. They signed him as a free agent. They even drafted him. He went and left. He played with the White Sox for a while. Yeah, I mean, that's his iconic moment.
Absolutely.
And the Giants weirdly have those.
Yeah, because you had him before. What was his name? So you had Cabrera, a guy who played good for the Giants, but was never like great player in Melky Cabrera. You had Panic have great moments in the past. You had Cody Ross.
Yeah, well, I mean, in 2010 it was kind of it was Cody Ross, right?
Yeah.
2012 was kind of Marco Scudero.
Yeah.
2014 you had Travis Ishikawa do his thing in the NLCS. So it's weird that they get this out of guys, because if you forget, Melky Cabrera was cut that year. He got suspended.
Because he got suspended.
So he didn't even make it through the year.
Right.
I believe that was 2012. So that was Scudero's kind of famed year, They get out of these guys, I mean, even in 2010 with Edgar Renteria being the eventual World Series MVP, they get out of these guys almost these iconic performances, and then even Bumgarner, you're telling me before the show what his ERA stands at currently through the postseason. It's just iconic. Yeah,
it's basically, if you take out the very first road game that he ever had in his playoff career back in October 11th against the Atlanta Braves, where he only gave up 2 runs over 6 innings, which is still not terrible. That's like a 3.0 ERA. But if you take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 starts on the road, he's only given up 1 earned run over 47 and 2/3 inning, which comes out to basically 0.18, not 1.8, 0.18 ERA on the road in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time he pitched in the postseason was Game 7 in 2014. 5 scoreless innings on 2 days rest.
Yeah.
And then the 2014 Pittsburgh wildcard game, he had 23 straight scoreless innings up to that point, including that game, in winner-take-all games, all on the road. He ranks right up with Koufax, Bob Gibson, Woody Ford, all those clutch guys in the postseason, I think, or Whitey Ford, excuse me. I think, he's just doing things that nobody else does.
Yeah, and they were trying to think of one of the comparison for him.
I don't have one because he does it so differently.
Yeah, because it's one of those things of it's not like he's somebody who is terrible and has great playoff games randomly. He's good in the regular season, but it's a totally different level in the playoffs. And not every playoff game, because sure, he's had the ones where he's gotten rocked for like 6 or 4 runs, but those are really rare.
Those were very long ago.
Yeah, and those are very long ago.
That's 6 years ago.
Yeah, that was back in 2012. He gave up.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so like he had those games, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of his starts, he's given up, or, I guess one of them wasn't the start, the 2 days rest, game 7. But, in those 8 different starts or relief, he's given up 0 earned runs.
Yeah, he's impressive to say the least.
And even something like I saw this stat last night from Inside Edge on Twitter, basically, Noah Syndergaard threw 42 pitches of 98 plus miles per hour. That's more than the Phillies and Indians threw all year.
Yeah, and not to be forgetting the performance that Syndergaard had. He looked more dominant than I think I've seen a pitcher. More dominant than I think I've seen a pitcher all year.
Yeah.
I mean, he like I said, it's 2 outs in the 6th is when he gave his first hit in a darn span.
Mm-hmm.
He pitched me. I mean, he to that point throughout the games, if they didn't lose, I would have said he arguably outpitched Madison Bumgarner.
Yeah, I think he had 4 straight strikeouts.
Yeah, I mean, neither of them, had given up much. When he left the game, I think he had given up 3 hits at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a stat line of 4 hits and you have a stat line of 3 hits and no earned runs at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he didn't stay in the game, but that's not an issue as much for the Mets as it is mainly in the face of the Giants, who have had all those blown closes.
Yeah.
Understandable as to why Bumgarner stayed in, but...
Yeah, at that point, Bochy was just like he was going to put in Bumgarner until he got to probably 125, 130.
Yeah, unless the game was 6 runs or more.
Yeah.
And there's no need for Bumgarner to be out there. I think there's no idea in his eye to see Bumgarner not finish that.
Yeah.
It's just when he's locked in. And I think that kind of goes with Bochy being a former catcher. He kind of knows and kind of sees these things. That's why I think he's always been such a good manager. Is he sees the game from that standpoint, almost a manager on the field in a sense.
Yeah, because you don't have to. I mean, yes, he was a former catcher, and you're not going to ask Bumgarner because he'll just be like, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah,
like he would ask to go back in the 10th if it was still tied 0-0.
But I'll tell you what, if one guy in that entire organization is going to give Bumgarner, if he's going to not let him, try to work around him and be like, no, I'm fine. It's going to be Bochy, and be like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
but really, are you? But I think with Syndergaard, he overpowered the Giants. He pitched. We saw how many times did, again, 9 swing and miss strikeouts of his 10. We saw. I mean, how many times did Pagan look late? Fouling off, doing that little kind of open end to a swing. It's like those are his fight off swings. Those aren't his actual. Every once in a while he gets maybe like a liner to opposite field swinging like that. But when he swings like that, it's not like he's hitting the ball.
Right.
And he was overpowered the entire time. You had so many, again, strikeouts to beat the dead horse there, but he was just on it.
Yeah.
And Bumgarner, I think, more so kept them off balance.
Mm-hmm.
He was mixing pitches, mixing locations, going from his up top speed down to his 77 low high. I just think that it was 2 very similar and at the same time separate, different type of styles for the way they approached it. And I think they were both very successful. I think, honestly, this is probably a better game than Tuesday's game.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you like baseball, if you like this game, you're a baseball fan. If you don't like this game, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Like you said, just different styles. Syndergaard was more of a brute strength power, like 99, 100 miles an hour, just throwing it right at you, stuff like that, to where Bumgarner was never more than probably like 94 or something like that, but always like mixing around. Whether
roughly 93, 94, yeah.
Yeah, always like high in the strike zone, or he'd have those curveballs that would go right on the corner, stuff like that.
So he had a beautiful one.
Yeah,
around
so
the 7th, I want to say.
Mm-hmm. And you could see like the pitcher or the batter sometimes just like they weren't expecting it. They were just like, oh, okay. And yeah, sure, there were like tricky calls, everything else like that, something in the 8th inning. But I mean, above all, like Bumgarner was just, I mean, you can sing his praises all day long about how insane he's been in the playoffs and everything else like that. But he's, even if he doesn't have like 10 plus strikeout stuff or whatever, he knows how to like not maneuver around to get out of the innings, but like he'd always seem to have something to where like they just couldn't get under it. They just pop it up or ground out or whatever like that. Like it was never something where it looked like they were just getting great contact off of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he never really seemed to get solid contact. I think. Yeah, that's what I think you're getting at. I agree. Yeah, I mean, and that goes to Syndergaard too. I mean,
right.
Even the contact they got was, I mean, Nunez was. I guess. Well, let's put it this way: Belt's contact was solid.
Mm-hmm.
He smoked that thing.
Yeah,
but other than that, he looked just unhittable.
Mm-hmm. They had and now like Familia, who you said led the whole majors in saves, you got that contrast to last night where Britton didn't even get into the game, and everyone's like, well, you need
Tuesday?
on Tuesday, where it's like, Tuesday. When you know, like, you should have put him in the game. He's the closer and everything else like that. Not to say they're the same thing, because Familia had his struggles last year in the World Series. Mm-hmm. But now you get the whole thing of like, okay, well, there is your closer.
Yeah,
look how that went.
Doesn't always go exactly as you imagine. Yeah,
baseball's weird.
I said the same thing. That you never know exactly how that's going to go. But I mean, at the same time, like the reason I didn't think he went in is because I thought he already had gone in that game. So I was like, oh, Britton must have already gone in. Like, we'd assume he got. But I also understand the spot and all that stuff. But not to get too much further into that, we already talked about it.
Yeah.
Let's take our first break. We'll come back. And then we will update you guys and take a look at now the set matchups in the AL and the NL. And the AL gets started today. Get started today, I think.
AL today.
And then NL tomorrow. So we'll get started and talk to you guys about that in a second. We'll take a quick break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we're back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, and we have officially gotten the AL and NLDS matchups solidified. So as of today, Thursday, October 6th, we do have 2 games in the AL today, but the ALDSs start. So the first game is going to be between the Blue Jays and the Rangers. That is pretty much what everybody expected the matchup to be, Estrada versus Hamels. Mm-hmm. It is a home game for the Rangers, of course. They have home field advantage through this one, of course, being the division winner, not the wild card. And then we have the Indians and the Red Sox starting later in the day, 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time there for the first game, 5 Pacific over here, 8 o'clock p.m. for the Red Sox-Indian game, and that is going to be in Cleveland, Porcello versus Bauer. Let's look first at the Blue Jays-Rangers game. The Blue Jays, of course, coming off the heels of their wild card victory over the I'm spacing for a second.
Baltimore.
Sorry, Baltimore Orioles. I just spaced in walk-off fashion, of course, and the home run. I feel like that was even more deflating because you had a run on first, you had a run on third. All they needed was a run to win.
Right.
And not only did they get that run, it was a walk-off home run. I would have been like, man, come on. Just bunt them home.
No, that's going to be so much worse if you get a bunt.
Nope.
Like, I would feel so, like, really, that's what you did? You bunted a run home? Like, I would just throw at him afterwards. Like, I don't care. Like, baseball's unwritten rules. It's like, no, you're going to get
over.
it.
Just hit him with.
Yeah, it's like, But now you have.
I'm looking at this one. Yeah, this is going to be a close series, I feel like. The Rangers arguably were one of the best teams in baseball through the entire year. Mm. You know what I mean? They've played great baseball, especially at home in Arlington.
Right. Mix in the fact of now you have the whole, Jose Bautista.
I really hope that doesn't come to fruition at all. Like, I hope I don't have to hear anything about it because the first couple games are going to say nothing but stuff like that. God forbid if Bautista gets a double.
Right. Also, the fact that he and Ronette Odor decided to, basically play Mortal Kombat.
Exactly. Yeah. So I personally don't think anything's going to happen because I feel like both of them would be dumb to allow anything to happen.
Well, it's one of those things like with playoff hockey, like they don't fight because they don't want to get in trouble kind of thing.
So, I would find it silly for them to do anything like that. I would find it very silly. But at the same time, you're going to have all that dumb aggression between fans, and you're going to have the build-up that they're like, oh, look at, they're near one another. Look, he's on first.
But if you're Bautista, do you kind of stoke the fire a little bit with that?
If I'm Bautista, I'm still upset that I got hit in the face and I got stopped before I could retaliate because I would be more upset that somebody hit me in the face and feel like they got away with it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he has to understand that this is bigger than him.
It is bigger than him.
Take it up next year when you face each other.
But do you do the whole Odell Beckham thing? Right? The thing with Odell Beckham is they realize if you get under his skin, he can kind of react and become a crazy person.
I mean, you can maybe say a couple things to him if you want. I mean, that's his call.
Right, but I'm saying like if he gets like a hit, like a big hit, do like another bad flip just to kind of like irritate some people around him.
That'll get you thrown at.
Right.
That'll get you thrown at or your teammates thrown at.
But then you play in the whole thing of just like, okay, how far are you going to do this? Because if you keep hitting people and getting people on base, that gives us more opportunities to score.
I mean, let me put it this way. I definitely think that if Bautista hits a significant home run in any one of these games, I mean, that's just how he is. He'll flip his bat.
I mean, we saw Encarnacion, the game-winning home run or whatever, didn't do a bat flip, but basically just like dropped it.
He did the bat drop. He had his follow through and then just like double hand dropped it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Clearly there's going to be bad blood between these two teams.
Right.
And I think they're going to have to keep it cool, keep it under control.
Right.
But I definitely think, you might see things along those lines of almost, the in-your-face kind of, actions, whether it's bat drops or excessive celebration for something, things along those lines. But we'll have to keep an eye on it, of course.
Yeah, and we've seen, the team this year as far as Texas goes. I mean, whether it be Ronald Odor with 33 home runs, Adrian Beltre with 32, like we've seen them perform really well this year. Even the people that they got over in the trade, I can't think of what his name is right now, from New York.
For the Blue Jays? Or for
no,
the Rangers?
No, for the Rangers. Anyways.
Beltran?
Beltran. Yeah.
Like,
it was like, because the Beltran was running through my head. I couldn't think of it.
Yeah,
so like they're
Beltran.
Yeah, they're clearly able to score runs. Toronto, same thing. So like this is probably going to be the series where every game is going to be around like 7-6, something like that. It's going to be high scoring.
I definitely think of all of the four matchups, at least the two in the AL, I think this one has more of a higher scoring look to it. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you who the higher scoring look I think will be in the NL in a minute. But let's move to the second ALDS matchup, and that is the Red Sox, who are facing off against the Indians. Mm-hmm. Red Sox, weirdly enough, were definitely one of the best teams in baseball all year.
Yeah.
And they don't have home field advantage in this one. The Indians finished with one game better than them in the standings. Actually, 2 games in the sense of one more win, and they had 2 less losses. Mm-hmm. So I think that's 1.5 or 2 full.
Yeah,
games.
1.5. Yeah.
But the Red Sox, I mean, this team has been on fire all year, whether it's great pitching or multiple hitting streaks and record-breaking, type of performances by players. And then the Indians have just won games. They've just gone out there and won them the right way. They don't have huge names on their team in terms of a David Ortiz or
right.
A Buchholz or a Dustin Pedroia. These guys that are obviously so iconic. All I had to say was David Ortiz.
Right.
There didn't have to be one more other than him. And they don't really have iconic guys like that as much as, obviously the Red Sox do. This one's going to be an interesting one, though, in my opinion. I think these are 2 very similar teams, but at the same time they're also very different in a sense with the way that they go about games. Yeah,
so Corey Kluber is the one starter they have that's basically kind of their go-to guy.
That's what I was saying, Kluber, yeah.
Yeah, but the other guy that they have, Carrasco, who's been pretty solid for them all year, he's on the 60-day DL. He's obviously gone. He's had a 3.32 ERA the whole year, so he's been just as reliable for them. They don't have necessarily, like you said, people that you would look at as like David Ortiz and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're big names like Mike Napoli, who was once on the Red Sox. Carlos Santana's their home run leader this year. He's a DH, though, so
right.
Not the same. I mean, Papi's a big H, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
A DH. Some big H. Big Papi's a DH, but I get what you're saying. And this is just going to be an interesting matchup, in my opinion. Kluber, when he pitches, he's their ace, but he's not pitching tonight.
Right. And you also have, for whatever it's worth, Terry Francona, former manager of the Red Sox, who was kind of unceremoniously let go in Boston after everything that happened with him, 04, 07, 2011? 11 or 13, whatever.
13.
13, yeah.
The World Series, yeah.
So, I mean, he's obviously brought the team the most success they've ever had. Now he's over in Cleveland trying to basically resurrect another franchise, and he's
doing a pretty good job.
He's doing a solid job, like I said, with the injuries that they have. With the one main story, because people, media and everything else like that, we like the sexy kind of stories or whatever. We like David Ortiz having, like, probably the greatest if he retires, retirement season
he's
in any sport ever.
He's definitely having the greatest retirement season.
Like in any sport you can ever think of, because whatever you want to talk about John Elway went out the best. John Elway wasn't that good. Peyton Manning, he went out on top. He wasn't that good in the final year. Like Ortiz is legitimately like an MVP candidate.
Yeah, no, he's playing lights out in his last year.
Yeah.
That'll be talked about for forever, especially if he goes out on top.
Yeah, if he wins the World Series, gets the fourth one, goes out, has an MVP-style season. Like, yeah, you can also talk about Mookie Betts or even Biantini, the rookie that they have. Like, they have people all around. Xander Bogaerts. Pedroia still, not Pedroia like he used to be, but he can still do some stuff. Like, the whole team is basically stacked with players who have a chance to make this stuff stay for the next 3 or 4 years after Ortiz leaves.
Yeah, I mean, in like going back to what you're saying about Francona, I mean, I'm sure there's maybe, from his point, maybe a little upset still sitting in there.
Oh, yeah.
Little pain maybe there,
Totally.
Mostly, but I don't think it's I think he'll be happy to see the former guys he managed and all that stuff.
Oh,
but no, I know what you mean. I think with this, I mean, they're not necessarily a home run hitting team, but I mean they were 5th in the MLB in runs scored. Mm-hmm. They were 6th in batting average. They were 8th in that on base percentage. They were 9th in slugging percentage. They were pretty good when it came to getting their offense on the board. And then, like I said, the pitching was good for in Cleveland Indians too. They were 7th in ERA. They were 10th in quality starts, 6th in WHIP, 5th in batting averages and attempts. They played great baseball throughout the entire year.
Yeah.
It's funny enough, they have a list of their longest home runs this year, of their home run hitters, Longest home runs so far this year, you have Mike Napoli with number 1, 467. Carlos Santana, 464. Mike Napoli, Carlos Santana.
Right.
Just those guys. Just not many
They're
other
the ones.
huge, power hitters of home run guys,
Yeah.
But they can put the ball in play and they can win games. I mean, and then you have Yan Gomes, who he hits home runs too. I mean, not often, but he can hit a ball out the park.
Yeah,
he's got quite a swing. So honestly, I don't know who really to give the edge to in this one. I want to say the Red Sox mainly because they have guys that have been there before,
right?
Whether they have Buchholz or Ortiz or Pedroia again, guys who have been in this spot before, guys that know the spotlight. I want to give it to the Red Sox in that aspect.
Also, they have, as far as the bullpen goes, you got Craig Kimbrell, who,
yes,
a couple of years ago was maybe the best closer, 2-3 years ago was the best closer in baseball. Only had 31 saves this year, but at the same time, he's been somebody who, if he's a closing situation, you absolutely rely on him. So you take all those things into account, the kind of magical last season of Ortiz, Kimbrell, even though they're on the road, that's kind of like a weird thing. It doesn't matter. It matters more about the pitchers that you have, and people on their team, like Porcello and everybody else, has been pitching pretty well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would lean, I guess, towards the Red Sox?
I want to say so, yeah. And before we move to the NL real quick, one note to say, talking about Terry Francona, he is the first manager in postseason history to face a team he had previously managed to multiple World Series titles. Hmm. Let's move to the NL real quick. Just an update, though, also. So there's 2 AL games tomorrow as well, but they are early games.
Right.
So 10 a.m. start for the Blue Jays-Rangers game. That is J.A. Happ facing off against Yu Darvish. And we'll see who has the 1-game lead there. And then, as we spoke about a minute ago, Kluber will be facing off against David Price in the game at Indian Stadium there in Progressive Field in Cleveland.
Right.
So, and that is going to be a 1:30 p.m. start. So, again, 4:30 there for the Indians game. And then it's early game, like I said, 10 a.m. here on the Pacific side of the country. And that'll be a still very early in baseball aspects, 1 o'clock start over there. So, NL, we move to the Dodgers National Series. That starts at 2:30 p.m. over here. So we're looking at a 5:30 Eastern Time start over there on the East Coast. That's going to be the Dodgers taking on the Nationals in Washington at Nationals Park. Max Scherzer facing off against the ace of their squad, Clayton Kershaw. This one's going to be a very interesting matchup. This is the one I don't. This is the other. This is the NL high scoring one I could see being games that are higher scoring. Because of a few things. Both of these teams have solid offenses. And then Kershaw, weirdly enough, he just doesn't show up the same way in the postseason. As you said with Bumgarner, He's great through the regular season, but there's something different about him in the postseason too. The same thing with Kershaw. There's something different about him in the postseason, almost like he stresses more. And then Scherzer, I mean, we've seen him in the postseason before. He's pitched well. I mean, the Nationals have been one of the best teams in baseball. I mean, of course, a lot of these teams have been one of the best teams in baseball, all of them at one point or another. That goes without saying. But I think this is going to be tough for the Dodgers because I don't think their pitching rotation matches up with the Nationals like maybe it would have last year.
Right.
You know, you have Kershaw now, and then it's a huge drop-off in terms of your starters, whether you have Hill or whoever you might throw in there. You know, the Nationals have Scherzer, and they have Gio, and they have a lot of good pitchers to go out there and, you know, take over games.
Right.
And I mean, that's been said for the last few years, and it hasn't necessarily gone that way. But, I mean, this isn't the first time they face each other. They know one another. This is going to be a good game, I think. I want to give the edge to the Nationals purely based off of their pitching staff and just more of a you know what you're going to get kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, that's at least what I look at it as.
You have to also, like, I don't know what the deal is necessarily with Bryce Harper. Because Bryce Harper, like, you know, there's been reports or whatever that he might be hurt or something like that because you see.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that.
Right, because you see, like, last year, MVP, you know, fantastic year, batting, you know, 330. Now this year he's down to 243. Like, that's got to be something. It's got to be some kind of, like, shoulder.
I mean, he started off very strong.
He did, and then after that he just tailed off. So it's got to be one of those things, like, all of his numbers are, like, super, super down. So if he can get off to a good enough start, and like you said with Clayton Kershaw, it's just one of those things where, like we talked about, how good Bumgarner's been. If you take Kershaw's last 5 starts, 4 of those 5 he's given up at least 3 earned runs, and 2 of those he's given up. One of them was 7, and one of them was 8 earned runs. So he's been, you know, fantastic, lights out, maybe the best pitcher we've ever seen in the regular season and in the postseason. You know, some good, some terrible starts, which is basically the opposite of Bumgarner.
Yeah, Bumgarner has some great and some amazing starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this one will be an interesting one to look at, honestly. I just feel like I have to get the Nationals because the Dodgers, it seems like they win these series and they get to the playoffs and they win these divisions and then they just seem to not really find it in the playoffs.
Right.
At least it seemed like that the last few years.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this is a good team, don't get me wrong. I think they have the ability to advance. It's really just going to be how they stack up with the Nationals.
And you have someone like Daniel Murphy who was so close to, you know, winning the batting title and everything else like that. So he's been on fire coming over from the Mets. Like I talked about, if Harper can do anything, you got Scherzer, one of the best pitchers in baseball. You got Dusty Baker, who, say which is well about him, like absolutely has postseason experience.
Yeah, oh yeah.
As much as anybody else.
He's got 2 teams in the World Series
exactly
right there.
Yeah, so I mean, he is somebody who you would absolutely have faith as far as not going to like lose his mind and just like throw out random situations.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. All right, and then the last one to preview, and again, this is a 6 p.m. start tomorrow. Yeah, so it's a late game actually for
6 p.m. us.
Yeah, 6 p.m. us. That's a late game over on the East Coast. And it's a 9 p.m. start. But the Giants are taking on who is, and no doubt in my mind, you know, when I say a lot of these teams were some of the best teams in baseball, this was the best team in baseball all year.
Yeah.
103-58, just lights out.
Yeah.
57-24 at home. The Cubs. John Lester's taking them out against Johnny Cueto. This is going to be a tough matchup because there's been 2 types of Cuetos this year. There's been the one that's just been on his first few starts of the year. He really showed that. He really showed that fans of the Giants that the money they put into him was worth it. From the get-go, he was just on it. And then Lester, I mean, Lester's been one of the best pitchers all year, you know, with what he does. And this is, you know, again, you can never count out either of these teams. The Cubs just find a way to win, and the Giants, they just, I can't explain the way they find ways to win. I don't understand it.
Yeah, we saw last night with the Giants, they were trying to do just small little things. Like they get somebody on base, okay, we're going to steal or try and bunt them onto second, just that way we can get a runner in scoring position and then see what can happen. And then you kind of counter that with the Cubs who, whether it's Bryant or Rizzo, they have people who can absolutely just pound the ball out of the park and they'll score. You know, on average, you would assume it's going to be a blowout as far as it goes, like maybe like a 7-2 thing with the Cubs to the Giants because they're so good at scoring runs. Then you contrast that with, like I said, how good Bumgarner's doing, how good Cueto's been. Add in a Samardzija, even something like that, who's been up and down, but still
definitely one of the better rotations they've had in these Worlds. Because like when going into 2014, I sat there and I was kind of like, okay, you know, they won some games going into it, all that good stuff. But I didn't think they had the pitching, the starting pitching, to take them through. And then obviously I was proven wrong with Vogelsong pitching lights out. You even had PV pitching games, you know, of his career. I thought the same thing back in 2012, and Zito showed, you know, proved me wrong.
Yeah.
So this is actually, weirdly enough, probably the most solid, you know, group of three they have. And then you have guys like Ty Block, who pitched a 3-hitter or 4-hitter on Saturday against the Dodgers, you know. Younger guys that can do that. It depends on what kind of rotation they're going to want to. I'm interested to see this roster and what kind of, you know, Matt Moore, who could be that fourth guy. You know, you could realistically go 4 and get Bumgarner back around as a fifth. You know, as of right now, it's Cueto tomorrow. You have Samardzija on Friday. I'm sorry, it's Cueto tomorrow. You have Samardzija on Saturday. Then there's an off day because no matter what, they're going back to San Francisco on Monday. If the Giants can get to San Francisco with a lead, you got Bumgarner. You got Bumgarner facing off against Arrieta. I think that's where the Giants want to be. If the Giants can escape Chicago with a lead, and you got Bumgarner on Monday, I'm going to find it very hard for them to beat him. Yeah,
and we talked about, so, you know, if Cueto can be there, Bumgarner can be there, Samardzija can be okay. You have someone like Matt Moore who could play the Yusmeiro Petit role that they've had in the past, where it's basically just somebody, because their bullpen has been so up and down, basically you can have someone like Matt Moore to come in, throw a couple innings, 2-3 innings, to kind of like help get you from whoever the starter is until presumably Romo, because Romo's been the guy over the last 4 starts last 4 closing situations where he's done well. If you can have somebody like Matt Moore or whoever come in and give you a few innings, and you have the lights out performances that Bumgarner's shown us to have, that Cueto's been doing over the year, like, you know, I would just, because it's only a 5-game series, right? So like, if you can get
first of 3,
if you can get a game in Chicago, if you're the Giants, you got to feel pretty good.
I would feel great.
Yeah,
you know, I think the big thing is you need to come away with 1 win.
Yeah,
at least, whether it's Cueto tomorrow, Samardzija, because like I said, Cueto's taking on Lester tonight. On Saturday, that's going to be Samardzija and Hendricks.
And Lester has that whole thing where he can't throw to first for whatever odd reason.
Yeah, so I'm saying get on first and dance around.
Yeah.
Make them go for you. Yeah, these are going to be – we're in for some great baseball, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
All right, let's take our last break, and we will come back and we'll preview quickly the Thursday night game. There's not much to really go into. You got backups taking on – you got backup taking on who would be a backup on any other team.
Right.
We'll cover that real quick, and we'll get out of here. Be right back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. All right. So we have talked so far about baseball, whether AL, NL, how good Bumgarner's done, everything else like that. Transition a little bit to the NFL. Thursday Night Football, now we're starting to get into that type of the year where it's kind of not the best football. You kind of are hoping for good games, but, you know, it's just kind of one of those things where the game tends to be kind of slow. People aren't as ready. Your body's kind of aching because you've only had a couple of days to rest. Now we kind of add insult to injury. Cardinals versus the 49ers. Like you said, one is a backup. One has pretty much been backup quality his whole career. So you got Drew Stanton starting for the Arizona Cardinals, who's had experience starting over the last couple of years.
I like Drew Stanton.
He's not terrible. He's just not what you would want if you're the Arizona Cardinals, because
you'd want Palmer.
You would want Palmer, you know, injuries and all.
He did serviceable though when Palmer went down with his leg injury.
Right, and then you had Lindley come in, who was a third string, and he was maybe the worst quarterback I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, Lindley played bad.
He wasn't the best.
Yeah, Lindley played bad.
So you have that, and then you have the San Francisco 49ers, who has Blaine Gabbert starting. Blaine Gabbert, who, for his career, I mean, when he was with the, Jacksonville Jaguars, he was terrible, to be fair.
That was a terrible team.
To be fair, a lot of people on the Jacksonville Jaguars have been bad. You know, there hasn't been a good quarterback for them since basically David Garrard.
Yeah, and then save 4 until you got Bortles.
And Bortles might be good, or Bortles might just throw up a bunch of
good.
garbage time stats.
No, I think he's good.
You think he's good?
Yeah, I mean, look at the way he won the game on Sunday in London. You know that offense was kind of went through him that day.
Their second home of London for the Jaguars.
Pretty much, home away from home.
They've been there so many
England's
times.
just gonna be nothing but Jaguars fans.
I mean, we've brought them over there enough
times. They call them the
Jacksonville
Jaguars.
But
this game, if you like fireworks,
right,
you might as well watch baseball.
Right.
I mean, this game you have Blaine Gabbert starting, who currently has 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. His ratio is horrible.
Yeah.
Carlos Hyde's the best thing on this offense, and if he can stay healthy, then maybe now we're talking. But I would have said him, save for Christine Michael, has probably been the best running back in this division so far. David Johnson's been good,
just up and down, kind of
up and down. Yeah, he's had really he currently has 1 more yard than Carlos Hyde, 300, 299, but he's got a lot of those at one point.
Yeah,
I mean, he had a 100-yard plus game or whatever it was, I think.
And even Todd Gurley hasn't been what you would hope he would be.
Exactly, yeah. And I think a lot of this offense for the Cardinals has really lacked something after the first couple weeks. There's been something kind of almost holding them back, like almost as if Carson Palmer had a concussion the last few games and he was playing through them. Obviously he didn't, but you have Chris Johnson, who just went to the injured reserve, Tyvon Branch, injured reserve, Carson Palmer's out, you have Darren Fells out, tight end there. And then, the Niners aren't doing any better. Glenn Dorsey, questionable. Jimmy Ward out. DeForest Buckner out. You have Vance McDonald, who's honestly I think the leading receiver almost, save for Jeremy Curley. Oh, wait, both are questionable. So if one is and one isn't, or the other is, either way, they're both questionable going into this game.
Yeah.
So there's just, and then, of course, NaVorro Bowman's out for the year now.
Right.
So and there's, I think Eric Reed was dealing with an injury. There's so many injuries. This game, remember the Rams-Niner game, how boring that was? Mm-hmm. I feel like this one's going to be boring.
So you have the thing with the Arizona Cardinals where you had so much expectations going there because be it Fitzgerald or Floyd or Johnson, either Johnson and Palmer, you had the expectation that, with all of those weapons, they were going to be scoring a bunch of points every single game, and it hasn't been the case. You always have those regression teams. You saw this year with the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
They aren't what you'd hope they were. I mean, you even had somebody like a Jermaine Gresham who, at one point in his career when he was with Cincinnati, was a pretty good tight end. So you at least had the option. You had the hope of okay, they're going to put this all together. They're going to make a playoff run. They're going to go deep. But you also saw last year the one thing that I guess, you could kind of call it foreshadowing a little bit. You can say it was one of those things where, if you want to point to one thing, last year you saw how bad Carson Palmer did in the playoffs. It was one of those things where it was okay, maybe this team isn't as good. Carson Palmer's 36 years old. This isn't going to go how we would all hope it would be, where he just puts everything together. Because that game against the Carolina Panthers, he had, 235 yards, but he had 4 interceptions.
Yeah, he wasn't playing great.
Yeah, he was kind of.
But that game was kind of a wash.
Right.
From the get-go.
Yeah, 49-15 is kind of a blowout.
And it was big from the start. That deficit never was close.
Yeah.
Except for the kickoff. I think this game, you have 2 1-3 teams.
Right.
Division games. I want to give it to the Cardinals just because I think they have more going for them as a team. And Drew Stanton is a good quarterback in the sense of he knows his role as a backup.
Right.
And I think he's better at being a backup than Gabbert is at being a starter.
Yeah.
And I think they're probably just in a better position to win this game, personally.
And you have the kind of safety valve of Larry Fitzgerald, where Stanton's probably just going to, want to throw it to him in the slot every time, just kind of.
He's a pretty easy one to, good one to have.
Yeah.
And I think, with the defense that's better for the Cardinals, I'm going to give it to them.
Yeah, that's the thing we thought with the Cardinals, that the Cardinals are going to be great because, they got Chandler Jones, they got the, I cannot think of his name right now, the guy from Ole Miss, who they drafted. Who was DJ, yeah, who was just kind of a freak over at Ole Miss. They thought this defense would be one of those things where they put it all together, and it hasn't been.
Tyrann Mathieu back.
Tyrann Mathieu, yeah, Patrick Peterson. You have those things where it's just everybody's kind of get together. This defense is going to be fantastic, and so far that hasn't been the case.
Yeah, I think they're still better than the Niners, though they have less questions. So personally, I'm giving it to the Cardinals on this one.
Yeah, me too.
Cardinals are going to take sole possession of third place.
Right.
In this one, the Niners will drop to the bottom of the barrel.
Somehow the Rams are still 3-1. I don't understand how that goes.
They are just going, man.
We talked about week one with them and the Niners. They look terrible. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, no, we're good now.
Well, I'll tell you why. Is because points against for the Niners currently is at 107.
Right.
The Rams have 76. The Seattle is obviously best with 54, but they have 79 points for themselves.
Right.
It's just, Los Angeles is facing teams that they can slow down.
Yeah, and Aaron Donald's maybe the best defensive player in football, now that J.J. Watt's gone. So, it's one of those so it's one of those things where, your defense can keep you in games. You don't have to do a lot, and hypothetically, you still have Jared Goff waiting.
Yes, you do.
So
you can't wait. All right, so let's go ahead. And so you say Cardinals too?
Yeah, I say Cardinals.
All right. Well, as always, you will be back tomorrow, and Ben will be here, and I believe Jeremiah joins you guys.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, I'm sure, will talk about this game as well as the baseball games tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I am not here tomorrow, but I will be back on Monday. I'd like to thank you guys, as always, for listening. I will see you again on Monday. As always, I'm Alex.
And I'm Anthony.
He will see you tomorrow, and we will see you guys later. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy the sports.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.